Imagine waking up one day to a world with no bees, no buzzing around flowers, no hives in gardens, and no pollination in our fields. It may sound like a minor inconvenience. After all, bees can sting, right? But this scenario isn't just a minor change to the soundscape of summer. It's a potentially catastrophic event that would ripple across ecosystems, agriculture, and the entire planet. Bees are far more crucial than many realize, and their disappearance would lead to severe, far-reaching consequences. In today's video, we're going to explore a question that should give all of us pause. Could we survive if all the bees disappeared? The short answer is yes, but the quality of life, the environment we live in, and even the variety of foods we consume would be dramatically different. To understand this fully, let's dive deeper into the essential role bees play in our world, what their extinction could mean for humanity, and whether or not we can do anything to prevent this disaster from becoming a reality. Bees are among the most effective and specialized pollinators on the planet. There are over 20,000 species of bees, from the familiar honeybee to solitary species like the bumblebee. These tiny workers are responsible for pollinating around 75% of the world's food crops, including fruits, vegetables, and nuts. That's 3 out of every 4 crops we grow, including staples like apples, almonds, blueberries, tomatoes, cucumbers, and even coffee. So what exactly do bees do during pollination, and why can't other insects simply take over? When a bee lands on a flower, it collects nectar to feed itself and its hive. As it moves around the flower, it also picks up pollen on its legs and body. When the bee moves to another flower to continue feeding, it transfers the pollen, allowing plants to reproduce and bear fruit. This fertilization process is essential not just for crops, but also for wild plants, trees, and flowers, which many animals rely on for food and shelter. While other pollinators like butterflies, birds, and bats play a role, bees are uniquely efficient. They are built to pollinate. Their fuzzy bodies and behavior are perfectly suited to carrying pollen from one flower to another. Some crops, like almonds and blueberries, are nearly 100% reliant on bee pollination. Without them, we'd lose a huge portion of our food production capability almost overnight. Now that we've established just how important bees are to agriculture, let's imagine what happens if all bees vanish. Right away, you'd see the effects on global food supplies. We wouldn't starve, but the variety and quantity of food would be significantly reduced. Many fruits and vegetables would become scarce. Foods like apples, avocados, and pumpkins would see their production drop dramatically, while some, like almonds, might even become impossible to grow without costly artificial pollination. And this isn't just a local issue, it's a global one. The United Nations estimates that crops pollinated by bees contribute to around $577 billion in global agricultural production annually. Losing bees would destabilize food systems across the world, causing prices to skyrocket and making certain foods unattainable for millions of people. Without these crops, we'd likely see an over-reliance on cereals like wheat, rice, and corn, which don't rely on bee pollination. While this might keep basic food supplies stable, the nutritional variety that bees provide would be gone. Imagine walking into a supermarket where shelves that once held fresh produce are now dominated by highly processed or carbohydrate-heavy foods. This lack of diversity in food sources would also have health implications. Fruits and vegetables are rich in vitamins and nutrients that are essential for human health. A diet missing these foods would lead to widespread nutrient deficiencies, with serious long-term consequences for global public health. Bees don't just help humans, they're a vital part of ecosystems everywhere. Their role as pollinators supports countless species of plants that in turn support countless species of animals. Without bees, many of these plants wouldn't be able to reproduce, leading to a domino effect throughout ecosystems. Herbivores like deer, rabbits, and many insects would struggle to find enough food. As these populations decline, carnivores that rely on herbivores for sustenance would also face food shortages. This collapse of ecosystems would trigger a loss of biodiversity. It's hard to predict the full scope of this, but in general, the fewer species an ecosystem has, the less resilient it is to changes like climate shifts or disease outbreaks. We could be looking at the destabilization of food chains and the loss of critical species that play unseen but vital roles in and maintaining the health of the environment. For example, consider how bees help pollinate wild plants that protect soil from erosion or provide oxygen. Without these plants, we would see further environmental degradation. Erosion would increase, water supplies could become more polluted, and carbon storage in vegetation would decrease, accelerating climate change. Section 4. Artificial pollination and technological solutions. In a world without bees, we wouldn't simply give up on pollination, but the alternatives come with major challenges. One potential solution is artificial pollination, where humans or machines manually transfer pollen between plants. This is already being done in some places, like parts of China, where bee populations have dramatically decreased. But artificial pollination is labor-intensive, expensive, and nowhere near as efficient as bees. Another possible solution is the development of robotic pollinators. Scientists are working on small drones that could replicate what bees do, but again, the costs and scale of such a project would be immense. Imagine trying to create millions of tiny robots to pollinate the planet's crops, keeping them powered, guiding them, and preventing them from damaging delicate ecosystems. We're nowhere near the technology or scale required to replicate the natural efficiency of bees. Even if we managed to develop robotic pollinators, the cost of such a system would make food production significantly more expensive, driving food prices even higher and making it even more difficult to feed the world's population. Additionally, artificial and robotic pollinators would likely only be useful for commercial crops, leaving wild plants, forests, and natural ecosystems to fend for themselves. This means that while we might be able to maintain some level of food production, the broader environmental collapse caused by the loss of wild pollination would continue unchecked. The economic consequences of losing bees would extend far beyond agriculture. The industries tied to food production, like transportation, retail, and food processing, would all suffer as the supply of produce shrinks. This would lead to job losses, especially in regions that rely heavily on farming and agriculture. A lack of variety in crops would reduce exports, destabilizing economies that depend on agricultural trade. For example, California, which produces the vast majority of the world's almonds, relies heavily on bees for pollination. If bees disappeared, this $11 billion industry would collapse, leading to widespread job losses and economic damage. Similar impacts would be felt across the globe, from Europe's apple orchards to Africa's coffee plantations. Additionally, with the decline in food availability, we could see a rise in global hunger, particularly in regions that are already vulnerable. As food prices increase, low-income communities would struggle to afford fresh produce, exacerbating food insecurity and malnutrition. So, can humans survive in a world without bees? The answer is yes, but at a tremendous cost. The variety of foods we currently enjoy would shrink, nutritional deficiencies would become more common, ecosystems would degrade, and food prices would skyrocket. We'd also see a cascade of extinctions as species that rely on bees for pollination and the species that rely on those plants for food begin to disappear. Our world would become less diverse, less healthy, and far more fragile. In the long run, humanity could adapt, but it would require massive investments in artificial pollination technologies, changes in farming practices, and significant shifts in our diets. The world we'd be left with would be poorer, both in terms of biodiversity and the quality of life. While the picture I've painted so far is bleak, it's important to remember that this is a preventable crisis. Bee populations are already declining due to a combination of factors: habitat loss, pesticide use, climate change, and diseases like colony collapse disorder. However, there are steps we can take to protect bees and prevent their extinction. 1. Reduce pesticide use. One of the biggest threats to bees is the widespread use of pesticides, particularly neonicotinoids. By reducing or banning these chemicals, we can create safer environments for bees to thrive. 2. Support sustainable agriculture. Practices like crop rotation, organic farming, and the planting of wildflower strips can create habitats for bees and other pollinators, boosting their populations. 3. Create pollinator-friendly spaces. Even in urban areas, people can help support bees by planting pollinator-friendly flowers and avoiding the use of harmful chemicals in their gardens. 4. Raise awareness. By educating others about the importance of bees and supporting policies that protect them, we can help ensure their survival. 5. Support local beekeepers. Buying honey and other bee-related products from local beekeepers can support healthy bee populations and encourage sustainable practices. The disappearance of bees would be a devastating blow to both the environment and humanity. While we could technically survive, the cost would be enormous, but this doesn't have to be our future. By taking action now, both individually and collectively, we can protect these vital pollinators and ensure that they continue to play their crucial role in maintaining ecosystems, supporting food production, and keeping our planet healthy. The next time you see a bee buzzing around a flower, take a moment to appreciate just how much they do for us. Their work may seem small, but it's essential to the survival of life as we know it. Let's make sure they're around to keep doing it for generations to come.